Welcome to what we hope is the first of many family discussions going into the future with either folks from the Tenbrunsel or Sekretarski or Bolus or Geist family. Our first guest, to my right, to your left, if you would indulge me, graduated from Father Ryan High School in Nashville, Tennessee, has a bachelor's degree from Bellarmine University in Louisville, Kentucky, a master's and a PhD from St. Louis University in psychology. Went on to, in his career, to be a professor at Xavier University. Took his family to Michigan to move into a healthcare planning organization. Then was a professor at Michigan State University. Moved into the fundraising arm of Michigan State University called the Development Fund. Was vice president at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. Then closed his career in private practice as a psychologist. He's a coach. He's an author. He's a poet, a biker, a gardener, a skier, an outdoorsman, a musician, a friend, a brother, a grandfather, a husband. He's global. He's the patriarch of the Tenbrunsel family. I call him Dad, so does Aaron, who's off camera, so does Brian. He's Tom Tenbrunsel. Welcome, and thanks for doing this.
Thanks. Could you do that again? I like that. Man, that's kind of interesting. That's me.
In a nutshell. Let's get right into it.
All right.
Tell us how you met Mom and walk us through the chronology up to the wedding.
Shirley Ann Bolus. That's who she was. And she's now Shirley Ann Tenbrunsel. But the first thing I think I can recall is we were rolling my spare tire down Farnsley Road in the middle of the night, and out of my Chevy, and some people stopped and said, "Hey, you need help?" And I didn't need any help. I was just trying to convince this girl that I was kind of cool. And so that was the first thing. And so we dated about a year or so. And but the first date's a good one. I guess I can tell all that. And it was in Cherokee Park in Louisville, and we were there with another couple, and they took a walk, and so we started dancing on top of the picnic table. And man, she kissed me. I'm like, whoa. I'm kind of shy guy. I'm not, But that started it all, and it took me like 6 hours into the night to process with my roommates back in the college that whole event, because they were wanting every detail. So we dated for a year, so whatever, and then I'm gonna go, and I got to go back and to Nashville and work for the summer, and because I'm going to graduate school for a year in St. Louis, and so I figured I'm going to give her a ring, hook this up and make sure it's all set. And so I took her out to dinner, and then we had it was a great place down there where Cassius Clay used to live. And we, I think the roast beef was a little rare, and she got a little diarrhea, I think. And so I had to take her home, and kind of said goodnight, and then I'm sitting in the car, a 61 Chevy Impala. That's a nice car, I'm telling you. It's a girl catcher. And I wish I had it now. Why does sell it? And I'm sitting in the car waiting for her dad to come home. He worked at American Standard, and he gets off at 11:30. I thought, well, it's just, I'll go down and I'll ask him if I can marry his daughter. And I'm sitting there, and my coat comes out the front door. Her mother opened the door, throws my coat out, it's spinning, and I'm going, oh, I left my coat in there. And I'm kind of shocked. I'm not sure what's going on, but what she thought was, my car's out there. I'm not in the car because when she came in, I got down, so she wouldn't see me. I don't know why I did that. And then she says, Shirley, where are you? And Shirley, I'm feeling good. She says from upstairs, Mom, I'm okay. And she thought, oh, brother, he's up there with her. That's going to be trouble. And so she threw my coat out the front door. So I moved down the alley and parked behind the garage because I thought I probably should look like I'm going home. And so I waited. He wasn't there at 11:30. He decided to do overtime. So he's 2 o'clock. We're down in Louisville.
2 a.m.
2
in the morning.
In the morning. 2 a.m. pitch dark. This is all in the evening, pitch dark. And so he comes in at 2 finally, and I'm going, and is this ever going to happen? And I'm kind of walking around because nobody knows I'm there and it's dark, and he's coming around the garage from parking his car, and I said, hey, John, it's me, because I don't want him to get scared, maybe, you know. And he says, just a minute. I'm going, okay. He goes back in the garage. He gets 2 lawn chairs, brings them out, sets them on the patio, and we sat there and we talked. We talked for, I guess, an hour and 15 minutes. And I said to him, John, I wanted to ask you if I can marry your daughter. And he said, hell, Tommy. I know she hadn't been not getting all those bride magazines for nothing. And that was his way of saying yes. And so I gave her a ring the next day, actually in church. And went there back for breakfast, and her mother was still mad at me. She knew she just got engaged. She's still mad at me. She knows I was not in the house, not up in the bedroom with her. She's still mad at me. But I think she was mad for 6 months. And but I became number one after a while. And so that's how we and we got and want me to cover like the wedding? That was great. It was
Sure.
like in St. Helens, and so
Sure.
Can we talk about who married me?
Shoot, you talk about whatever you want.
Yeah. So my great uncle was the Archbishop of Tennessee and Kentucky for the Catholic Church, and he married my mother and dad in Nashville, Holy Name, where I went to grade school and lived. And he came out of retirement to marry Shirley and I. It was really phenomenal. That was cool. And so he pontificated at St. Helens, and that was about it. What else?
And he also, I'll say it, he also married your parents.
Oh yeah.
In addition to marrying you, the Archbishop.
Yeah.
So, good
Yeah.
lead-in. Let's talk about them. We call them Mima and Papa. They were Elizabeth Litz and Jerome Urban, J.U. Tenbrunsel, your parents.
Yeah.
Talk to us about them, how they shaped your life and how life has been like without them.
You know, if you're looking for a story about down and out guy and he's just nothing, he's gotten drugs and he's had a terrible life and it's like a dysfunctional family, you got to go someplace else. Because I mean, I had the greatest parents in the world. Married the greatest women, I got the greatest kids and the greatest grandkids, and we'll get into that later. But it's like, wow, they were good parents, and they each played a role. You know, my dad was kind of a sports guy, and I never could beat him at tennis. I never could beat him at softball. I mean, I couldn't beat him at anything until he he retired. You know, I think what was he 80, and so I enjoyed that with fishing, and he just spent a lot of time with me. My mom was always there for me. She was kind of my counselor, my rock to bounce things on and off. And Litz, she was a sweetheart. And they all called him Mima and Papa. And gosh, they thank God they lived a lot longer, so they saw some of the grandchildren. The children, maybe the grandchild.
Will.
Yeah, Will. So we'll get into it later, but that's why I garden. I garden with my father. He got an award for the Victory Garden. I thought people were going to watch this and go, what's a Victory Garden? I'm going way back to the war in 1942 when they said, hey, we got to send all this food to the troops. You guys got to grow anything, anywhere, anytime. Some people grew corn on the roof, on the front yard and everything. But he had a victory garden. He won an award. And I worked a garden. I've had a garden every year. I have a garden, victory garden right now. And I wrote the book, Casual Gardening. So we did that, and we fished, and we made kites out of butcher paper and sweet anti-weed and flew them. I could go on and on, but I mean, they were wonderful parents. They were.
They were. We loved them dearly. I loved them dearly. I've always said that I probably dream about one of my 4 grandparents at least once a year, even to this day.
Yeah,
So,
I dream about my coat flying out the door sometimes, and I wake up.
your parents were so special to all of us, Aaron and I and Brian and everybody else.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your extended family. They've been a huge part of your life, huge part of our lives, my life. The times, I mean, countless times we drove from Michigan to Louisville to spend time with Mom's extended family, and then again from Louisville down to Nashville to spend time with your extended family. I have so many fond memories of Louisville and Nashville. I could go on, but I won't. And there's so many people that are special to you. We can't talk about all of them, but a couple come to mind. Your brothers-in-law, Jimmy Reichert and Gary Grimes, you had a special relationship, the 3 of you, and we all got together doing all sorts of tomfoolery. Talk to us maybe about, do you have any good Jimmy Reichert stories?
Yeah, I do. I married the first girl out of there. So it was like I went through the tough stuff, the coat out the door and everything. But they were second and third. They were marrying the next girls, and I thought they had it easy. And we had fought a lot about who's number 1 and all, and we got this one picture at this one resort we were all at, and unfortunately Jimmy Reichert was standing under apartment number 1. It was over his head. I'll never forget that. It was just a coincidence, but he was number 1, I guess.
And of course, number 1 meaning who is the most favored son-in-law of Mom's mom, Mima. That's what he's referring to.
Yeah, Thelma. So, yeah, Jimmy, I can tell the story about Jimmy. I mean, it was strange. We would travel to see them over in Norwalk, and they'd travel to see us, but we didn't do it very often. And maybe we hadn't seen him about 4 months, and he drives up to Michigan, Lansing, and gets out of the car, and he and Bevy are just, I think they were there maybe by themselves, I forget, maybe they had one son with them, Timmy. But he gets out of the car and comes over, and I go to shake his hand. And he knew I was going to go shake his hand, but his hand wasn't there. It was a short-sleeved shirt, and there was no arm there. And for like 2.6 seconds, I was in shock when he told me he had a chainsaw accident. And I feel like a fool for falling for that one. But I needed to get even with him. So it wasn't that visit, but the next visit, they stayed in the basement. And in our house, there was the upstairs, the single bathroom that you have in houses, for guests. It was right above the bed. And so I went and I got a gallon milk jug, and I filled it full of water. And it was after they had gone to bed, and it must have been 10 o'clock, 10:30. So I start pouring it in the toilet. I pour a little more, and then I let it slow down, and pour some more, and it slows down. Then I pour a whole lot in there, and let it go, and I pour a little more, and then drip, 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 whatever. And then pretty soon, I think this went on for possibly 10 minutes. They come up the stairs, they're just laughing and giggling. I'm sitting there holding a gallon jug like this. And so that's my Jimmy Reichert story. We always pulling pranks on each other for sure. And I think I got him back. Oh, I know what it is. Here's Gary. Gary's kind of a big guy. He was a union worker for Ford.
Ford.
And I bought a lot of Fords on employee family tickets, so I can't talk bad about Gary. But Gary would say, we'd go visit him, and he'd say, come on, Tom, I got to run some errands. And 4 hours later, we'd get back. He would run errands. He'd stop at 10 places: the bank, the shop, the tool shop, get gas. I mean, it was just like, it was kind of miserable, except he'd always stop by White Castle.
And no time with Gary Grimes is miserable.
No.
Right.
No.
Doesn't exist.
Well, when we would ride, we'd come up to see you. We would stop in Louisville for the night to break up the trip, because in those times I was driving all the way up instead of having somebody fly me up, which I certainly appreciate. But but I would stop at Gary's house, and Gary would always want to watch a movie. It's 9 at night. I got to get some sleep because I'm driving 7 more hours to Chicago, and so I have this picture. I don't know whether I fell asleep or not, but Gary would immediately go to sleep. He'd put Apocalypse on, and when he wasn't crying, he was sleeping. and he's in this lounge chair, and he wasn't snoring, but you could tell he was sleeping. And I don't know whether I was asleep or not, but I had this feeling that I saw Gary get up, walk towards the TV, and step into the TV. And he became part of the show. I think it was a dream or what it was, but that's Gary. He was just like the TV for me.
I loved to
Let's watch a movie. Oh, let's watch one more. What do you mean watch it? You've been asleep.
The three of you were a thrill to be around. I loved it.
Fun.
Talk about you had one sibling, your sister Ann, who was a couple years older than you.
4.
And her husband George, and I'll tell you, if ever there was a couple that I think that could write the book on marriage, it's the two of them. They got it right. They got married early on, and they had probably the most loving marriage I think I've ever seen. And I know that they were a huge part of your life. George was probably an older brother to you and very special to you. Talk about those two.
George taught me a lot about how to survive high school. And so, I broke her nose twice. And when
I didn't know that.
Yeah, when she was young, I broke her nose twice. I don't think I meant to. I didn't swing at her. I don't know how I broke her nose. My first car was a car that was a push car where she would push me around in it because I was 4 years younger. One of those push cars that got like a fire engine or whatever. So anyway, Ann got married at 17. And her husband just passed away a couple of years ago. They never saw the inside of a bar. Went to church every Sunday, sometimes during the week, but she played the organ. She still plays the organ for the church, and runs the choir. They're just remarkable people. I love to hang out with George because he was a wealth of information. I miss him because I'd say, well, George, he was getting a little dementia, and I went hiking with him one day up here off the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I started my car, and it made a real whistling, ripping noise. And George saw me, and he comes over. I said, George, what is it? He says, this is your idler. It's going bad. I'm going, damn. Who am I going to ask next time? George knew everything. He knew how to fix things by looking at them. He worked in a blacksmith shop from shoeing horses to mostly small engines, and they love to hike. We love to hike with them in the Smokies. They love the Smokies, so I did a lot of camping and hiking with them. And there's some side stories I could tell, but I'm not going to tell the one where I came back from whatever I was doing out past the tree with George says, Tom, you got a little toilet paper on your foot. So that's kind of what it was. I'll tell you one. Let me tell you something real quick before you cut me off on this. We're up on Rocky Top, and Shirley and Ann are over there picking blueberries, and George and I are over here, and he's got a nice camera, and he's got a lens and all, and a big old male bear, black bear, charged us. Let me explain it, because the ranger next day told me about this. They make a false charge. But when they make a false charge, they're coming at you for about 30 feet, and they stop where that camera is right there. And by that time, I had gotten behind George in case he fell over or something. So the bear would get him first. And he stopped. And George was taking pictures. I don't know what George was thinking about. He should have been thinking about hitting him with the camera. He just turned around and walked up the Appalachian Trail like, I just wanted to let you know that's my blueberry patch, and don't forget it. So those kind of things that we did with Ann and George, and I just loved to go over their house.
They were special people, and it's not a coincidence that all of their kids are wonderful people as well.
9 kids?
Is that what it was?
I think it was.
9.
They're great.
They're lovely people. You met a lot of famous people in your life. If
Yeah,
you'll
for
indulge
sure.
me, I'm going to read the list.
Yeah, I mean, my jobs took me there. I was being vice president and director of fundraising. I was running into some big names that I couldn't even get in the same building with.
Ted Kennedy, Neil Armstrong, Al Gore, John Denver, Arthur Ashe, Jim Hood, John Hanna, Bud Wrigley of Wrigley Gum,
Yeah.
Bill Smith, former CEO of General Motors, Lee Iacocca, who many remember, Gene Washington, famous football player, B.F. Skinner, famous psychologist, Tim McCarver, famous baseball announcer,
Yes, Cardinals.
Aaron Neville, great singer, Red Skelton, great comedian. We can't talk about all of them, but maybe can you pick a couple? You have a good Neil Armstrong story the day you rode in the
Neil
car with him?
Armstrong. This is something I could tell anybody. When you're out there, and you're in a situation like I was as a graduate student, they would bring in speakers, and when I got to be a vice president, they would bring in a person for a reception at the Space and Rocket Center, a famous person. So I got in the habit of saying, I'll pick them up at the airport. Man, you talk about some time, quality time. You pick up B.F. Skinner, and he's talking about, Tom, I was a behaviorist, and I'm really sorry I kept Anna in that Skinner box, his daughter. but he says, I'm a humanistic psychologist now. And I'm going, that's some inside information there. I picked up Neil Armstrong. I knew a lot of the astronauts because I was in Huntsville. And vice president UAH, Huntsville's just the center for space and stuff. I picked him up at the airport, because he was going to be the guest of this reception. And we're driving back in my, what looks like a unmarked trooper patrol car I had for my university car. It's kind of good because I'd flash the lights and people would move over. And so we're riding along, and they told me, and they told other people, do not ask Neil Armstrong for an autograph. You do not do it. He doesn't like to do it. He won't do it. So I'm saying to him, just chit-chatting him, Commander, this
Just
and
you
that.
and he in the car?
Just me and me. I'm driving. And I'm driving. He drove the lunar lander, but I'm driving this. And
I want to
said,
make you the Michael Collins of that trip, but keep going.
That's right. And he says, I said, Commander, because I respected that guy. So, Commander, have you ever run out of gas? And those of you who may not know the story is that he had about 1, maybe 2 seconds left of gas when he was landing that lunar. If you watch the replays of that, he won't let it come. Put it down, Armstrong, put it down, they were saying. And I'm going to put it down the perfect spot. And he looked at me, he says, you want to go there, don't you? And I said, well, I don't mean to offend you, but he said, just give me that. I had this patch in my suit, this round Apollo 11 thing, which is him and the other guys. And I've got it up on the wheel between my fingers like this, like, I'm not saying anything to him, but he looked at that, he says, give me that. Pulled out his pen, and he signed the back of it. I still got it at my desk. It was like, wow. And He said, "Not a word, not a word. You understand?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And I said, "And I'm glad you didn't run out of gas." And he said, "So am I."
Tell us about the night you had dinner with Ted Kennedy.
You know, it was scary. Well, scary and also something else. Ted was in, you know, I was always involved with the fundraising, political. They would come in. I'm the university vice president representing that or whatever. And so Shirley and I took him out to dinner at a, you know, a real nice restaurant there in Huntsville. And he's ranting and raving. He's getting drunk because he was putting down those whiskeys, whatever it was, I can't remember. A glass like that, you know, with no ice in it. And he was putting them down, and he's talking about, and ranting and raving, said, "They killed my brothers, they killed Jack, they killed Bobby." He says, "I'm pissed. They're talking about me doing this and the other. I've had it." And I'm looking at him, and I'm telling you, the table was here, and right over here, we're next to a window that's about this wide and this tall, and it's 9 o'clock at night, and it's pitch black, and I'm just waiting for a sniper to shoot through there. I mean, I'm thinking they're going to get him right here. And I remember having that on my mind the whole time. Well, we had good conversations, but he was hitting on Shirley all the time.
You heard it here. Ted Kennedy was hitting on my mom.
Yeah. I didn't mind it. I knew it. It was just Ted.
Now, Jim Hood was on our list of famous people. For those of you who don't know Jim Hood, this is the summer of 1963 when there was a standoff at the University of Alabama with Governor, help me with the governor.
Wallace.
George Wallace.
Oh, you know Wallace?
And there were two black students that wanted to register that day. Jim Hood was one. There was a lady who was another. Her name escapes me. And there was
Vivian Malone.
Vivian Malone. And there was a standoff between the governor and I think a branch of the government from Washington under, of course, Jack Kennedy, because it was 1963.
Yeah.
And eventually those two students did register, and Jim Hood became famous for that day. And you befriended Jim Hood, became friends with him at Michigan State that went on for years. Talk about that.
Yeah, Jim and I were real personal friends for his life. Not at that particular time, but afterwards he got his degree at Michigan State. I'm faculty, and we got to know each other. And then when he was on the Detroit Police Force, when I consulted with them, he was on special projects down there that we worked together. So I knew Jim real well. So Jim told me a lot of the back history. I'm not going to bore you with what really went on, because you can YouTube what happened. George Wallace standing there and saying segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. And I said, "Jim, how did you feel?" He says, "My knees were knocking." He says, but he told me the story about that, and I admired him. I can tell you the backstory real quick, because I think nobody knows this story. What would have happened had George Wallace not stepped down? Jim says, "Well, it was a plan, and I knew it, because I was going to be a part of what they were going to whisk me away, and the Secret Service was going to push him through the doors of Foster Auditorium, which is where you register down there, where this woman over here, my daughter, Erin, was the setter for volleyball for 4 years, and it became the volleyball arena. But they're going to push him through, whisk him through the doors out back, and onto what they had brought in was a helicopter on a flatbed the night before, because they didn't want to they didn't want people to hear a helicopter coming in. They were going to put him on that, fly him to Birmingham, where Air Force One was waiting. Kennedy sent Air Force One down there to take him to Leavenworth until they could decide what to do. That was the plan. Now, you know, somebody told Wallace, and he milked it, but nevertheless, that was it. And it's kind of the backstory. I mean, you don't know it, but it's fun to know. And let me just tell you, we got a little time. I'd like to tell you about Kennedy told Jim Hood you call me. Here's my number. You call me anytime, anything you want, you call me. And he and Vivian were just bored because the Secret Service, there was like, he said 12 of them, and no students ever would come around. Even if they wanted to, they wouldn't let them around. They said it was boring. It was just me and Vivian. It wasn't fun. It was just like, this is college. And so he dials them up, says, present, through the secretary, the red phone, whatever, right to Jim, and he says, Jim, how you doing? He says, I really appreciate what you did. It's wonderful. How are things going? Oh, well, Mr. President, it's fine. Jim, call me Jack. Oh, yes, sir, Mr. President. Call me Jack. Yes, sir. Mr. President, you told me to call me Jack. Okay, Jack, I want to go to the drive-in. Me and Vicki want to go to the drive-in. So he said, okay, that's cool. I'll take care of that. So what they did the next day is they went to the drive-in on McFerrin, whatever that big road is. I've seen it when I came down McFarland. I went past it. It was kind of defunct at that time, but back then, so they get to the drive-in. It's been cleared out. There's not a car in it. There's like 6 or 7 Secret Service vans and things around, and a driver in their car, he and Vicki in the back seat. And they looked at each other. He didn't tell me what was the movie. He told me. I had to look at my notes. But they looked at Vivian Malone, and she said, this is no fun. So they went home. Let's go. So they went home. They didn't watch the movie. But that was kind of neat because the relationship with Jack Kennedy was kind of personal.
And your relationship with Jim Hood was very personal,
too.
He
was personal.
So that was standoff number 1 at Alabama University of Alabama. Tell us about standoff number 2 with Jim Hood at Alabama University.
Standing the schoolhouse door, the standoff at the schoolhouse door is what we just talked about. But there was the standing at the door, or the whatever, number 2, and that's personal. And Jim and I had, he'd met Aaron. They were going to graduate the same time. He with his PhD in some kind of social science. And
he's, of course, significantly older than Aaron, but he was getting his PhD.
Yeah, she's a PhD, and you were getting your master's in...
BS in computer science.
Yeah. And so they call me, I'm vice president, and the vice president of student affairs calls me from Alabama and says, we had shut down the elections for 5 years because of the machine. If you've ever heard of the machine in Alabama, it's pretty serious, and it starts at Alabama. And they just work right up through, take you right up through, and you get to be a senator and whatever through this machine. But it's president of the university. They had shut it down for 5 years. And the vice president called me and he says, we want your daughter to run for president of the student union. I said, it's not going to happen. He says, well, we really want to. Well, I said, okay, look, let's explain that. I understand why you quit, because there was violence. And I said, what you're going to do is you're going to guarantee me how we're going to protect her, because I don't want this violence to happen. He says, I'll guarantee you. I said, okay. So she ran. On election day, there was about, how many booths? There must have been like 10 voting booths out there at the foot of the student union building on campus, and there's like 20 steps up to the building, all 4 sides. The voting booths are down here. Aaron calls me and said, Dad, it's about 3:30 in the afternoon. My people can't vote. The lines are too long. I said, I've heard about this before.
This is the machine.
I said, they're stacking the lines. And so I said, I'll take care of it. I dialed up Jim. How's she doing? He says, he's excited about you running for president. She's looking great. I've heard her speak on campus. This is really exciting. I said, Jim, they're stacking the lines. What? They're stacking the lines. He said, I'll take care of it. He hung up the phone. There was no more conversation. He went over, and as he stood in the schoolhouse door to register, he went up those 20 steps and stood up there, and he says, anybody in this area in line is not going to vote, they're going to answer to me. Everybody knew Jim Hood at this time. They knew who he was. He was a celebrity at this time. They dissolved. The voting lines dissolved. And you 55,000 people, you came close to beating them. I think that if we'd have got that solved, we might have beat them. But at any rate, that was the stand. Let me tell you one other thing about Jim, the apology. I think I owe it to George Wallace to talk about the apology. And this is the back history again, is what I like to talk about. Great story. And Jim told me, he said, about a month before the graduation where he's going to get a PhD, the governor called him. And the governor says, Jim, can you come over? And he went over, and the governor was really ill. He was in a wheelchair, had been shot, and he ran for president. He was in a wheelchair, and he had an IV line running in him. This guy wasn't going to live very long, but at any rate, he said, Jim, I was wrong. And I wanted to apologize to you. I should never have done what I did. And I thought that's he was definitely sincere. He didn't have to do any of this. And he reached out and Jim shook his hand. But Jim held on to his hand, he says. I held on to the governor's hand. I wouldn't let go. I said, Governor, I'll accept your apology on one condition. If you'll hand me my diploma on stage. George Wallace didn't make it. He was on his deathbed. But he died shortly after graduation. But Jim was there. He got a standing ovation, and you graduated with him. That's the second stand at the schoolhouse door with an apology from a man who is seen as a racist. I think he was dead serious about his apology, and was making kind of amends at his, which a person I guess does when they're on their way. So that's it. Jim. He came to our house for Christmas dinner and all that stuff.
Wonderful man.
He came into Foster Auditorium to see you play volleyball. I called him up and said, Jim, she's playing tonight. He said, I'll come over. He comes over and he gets to about from here to where Jacob is, and he says, I said to him, ho, Jim, who let you in here? He looked like he wanted to hit me. He big old smile. He's a short fellow, but he's got a booming voice, and he says, Tenbrunsel, you're pushing it.
Which you were.
I was pushing it. He was a great man.
Jim Hood.
Jim Hood.
Music. Let's talk about music. It's been a huge part of your life, all of our lives.
Yeah.
We're going back to the 70s at the Hollers Farm, our friends. The hippie days, the campfire, and all the guitars and songs.
I'm Appalachian. Okay. In my heart, I'm Appalachian. I'm right. I'm in the perfect place. I'm home.
And
I want to sing something for you.
Lay it on us.
That's where I needed that hat. Because I needed my country hat. Poor Willie. You never heard this song? You never know it? We don't know who wrote it, but my mother used to sing it to me as a little boy, and I've never forgotten it.
Let's hear a little bit of it.
Oh, he's a gone from us forever, our darling blue-haired boy, our cockeyed darling, we will see no more. He gently passed away on the 93rd of May. He never died so suddenly before. Well, anyway, the verse, he said, no more will he tease her, no more upon the mat will he tease poor pussycat, no more betwixt his teeth will he gnash her tail, gnash, gnash. My mother would do that. No more will he stick her nose up against the red-hot stove, our darling blue-haired Willie has kicked the pail. Oh, we gave him a dose of glue, thinking that would bring him to. But alas, our efforts were in vain. For after all we tried, he just heaved a sigh and died. Then he sneezed and blowed his nose and died again. So some of that's mountain music. We did folk history. I mean, folk singing, mostly folk singing, bluegrass and things with the hollers. We'd have jam sessions, and I think you would probably say, you're going to say, that's where you got your impetus to be a singer, because you sang in the band in Detroit as a side job. Your wife, Carrie, was the 5 years in a row the #1 vocalist in Chicago. So we're not just bunking around here, but we used to have a jam session. We'd sing them all. All those folk songs, Blowing in the Wind and everything, and Bobby McGee and.
And you playing piano. My memories of going to bed in Michigan upstairs with you playing piano for half hour, 45 minutes, and just banging out songs night after night, unabashedly. Great memories.
I don't know how to read music.
You played great piano, and I remember those days.
Played it all
you were able to check.
You play it by ear.
By ear. That's where I got. My mother played by ear. She'd just sit down and play something. Now my father would play Paderewski's Minuet, and like I'm going, there's no way I can do that. But it was great.
But he read off sheet music, and your dad read off sheet music. Your mom
She
played from ear.
Yeah, she played from ear. And for some reason, I just play from ear. I got it from her.
You were able to check off a bucket list with regards to singing.
Oh,
if you could tell us that story.
The bucket list. I know what this is. It was at my daughter's wedding. One of my bucket lists, I wanted to sing at my daughter's wedding. And I did. And so I thought, if I'm going to sing in this huge cathedral, in this massive wedding, I better get somebody that can sing. So I asked you to sing with me, and I would do the harmony. And I'm pretty good at harmonizing. And I go up and down any way I want to. It's just ad-lib it.
You're a great harmonist.
It worked. We sang the wedding song, and we weren't gonna. We got to the church. We'd practiced by sending messages and back and forth. We'd send tapes, kind of whatever, back and forth on the internet or whatever. And then we practiced in my Honda Accord that morning, CD player, and we're in the Honda. We're singing together. And so then we had the audition. I mean, the nerve. I'm paying for
the day of the wedding.
I'm paying for this wedding.
Audition.
I guess the church put the choir, the organ player, and Carrie passed with flying color. He didn't even ask her to audition. And then you had the Delta Idol, American Idol, Delta Idol at your wedding to sing Josh Groban's "You Raise Me Up," and so I'm sitting there and I'm not making the cut. I'm thinking I'm going to get tossed.
You're going to get cut from singing at your own daughter's wedding.
Yeah, and I'm trying to audition, and what's his name, Josh? Josh was sitting in the 5th row and up in the choir loft. He sees there. He comes down. He comes over. He grabs a sheet of paper and a pencil, and he drew shape music. Shape music is squares, up, down, up, twice, down, over, and they're all connected. That's what they have done in the mountains. That's how they didn't have music, notes and paper and stuff like that. I mean, sheet music. So he drew shape music, and I instantly knew what he meant. And I sang it. I think I sang it pretty good. We did a good job.
I thought we pulled it off.
It was an important moment. I went down. I remember you were so pretty. I went down and I told you I'm going to sing at your wedding, and you were so excited about it. You didn't have as much excitement as I did about it. But I'll tell you what happened when I'm taking her down the aisle. When they shut those doors after the party, when they opened them up and they played the
Minuet in G.
Minuet in G, and I'm walking her down the aisle, and I'm having to hold her back. She's got her eye on Jimmy, and we got this long aisle, and we're headed down now, and I'm holding her back. And so when when I finally got there, I wouldn't let her have him. I held her back, and I looked Jimmy in the face, like, you know, like, you're there. I was close. I was like this. And I said, Jimmy, today I give you, I'm going to cry. Today I give you the most precious gift I have to give. Jimmy was going to cry. But then I handed her off, and that was the beginning of a great romance and
Yes,
marriage
indeed.
and grandkids.
Oh, that's great. At the risk of getting sentimental again, let's talk about, obviously 2 of your children are in this room right now. Erin is just off camera, but she's 2 feet from you.
Yeah, she's passing notes to me.
Brian is 2 hours away, but I think everyone knows Brian's had an extremely exceptional career as a pilot,
F-16.
both in the commercial world and in the U.S. Air Force as an F-16 pilot, and making his way all the way up to full colonel in the United States Air Force. You intervened at a key point in his career. Tell us that story.
Maybe I was put on earth to do a couple of things. One is sing at your wedding, and the other was I did something you never do. You don't mess with the military. So Colonel Patterson had been at Brian's graduation. Brian finished first in everything he did in flight school. And he was destined to fly heavies, the KC-135s at the time, with Colonel Patterson over in Charlotte. And Colonel Patterson at this table, probably 10 of us, Shirley and I, Laura's parents and all of them around, and Patterson's sitting here, he says, Mr. Tenbrunsel, I didn't make him call me doctor. Mr. Tenbrunsel, your son is exceptional. I'm so impressed. He can do anything that he wants to. He can accomplish anything he wants to. I put that in the back of my mind. Brian graduated, and he was ready to Tuesday. He was home in February, and he was going back. And a week from that first Tuesday, he was going to get in a heavy. And once you get in a heavy, you don't get in anything else. I had a week to make this decision. Brian was gone, and I pick up the phone. It's Saturday morning, and I call Colonel Patterson. He was out cutting grass. He says, "Oh, Mr. Tenbrunsel, I'm excited about Brian's accomplishment. It's unreal. I can't wait till he gets here." And I said, it was a silence. I was like thinking, I'm going to screw the pooch here. And I said, Colonel Patterson, you said once Brian was very accomplished, that he could do anything he wanted to. He would like to fly fighters. He's going to fly heavy, right? He wants to fly fighters. There was a pause, and I thought, well, I probably shouldn't have done this to the full colonel that's going to hire him in the Air Force. You don't monkey with him. He came back and he said, after a little pause, he said, if Brian wants to fly fighters, I'm not only going to put him in a fighter, I'm going to put him in the #1 unit in this country. I'm going to send him to it's really the Tuskegee Airmen 302nd. It was the best fighting unit in fighter jets in this country. And he sent him there. He got him a slot, and he didn't go Tuesday in the heavies. Monday they flew in with 2 big thundering jets. And the biggest thing at Enid was those big 16s coming in full burner. And they came in and they said, Lieutenant Tenbrunsel, we want you to fly with us. And it was kind of a surprise to him, because I didn't call him and tell him anything. And he says at that moment, I'd like to go home and ask my wife if that's okay. I thought that was pretty bold. And they said, certainly. And they said, you're going to fly with us, but I'll guarantee you, 1 week from today, you're going to be in the Air Force. And I said, certainly. And they told him, they said, if Brian wants to fly fighters, I'm not only going to put him in a fighter, I'm going to put him in the #1 unit in this country. And he sent him there. He got him a slot, and he didn't go Tuesday in the heavies. Monday they flew in with 2 big thundering jets. And the biggest thing at Enid was those big 16s coming in full burner. And they came in and they said, Lieutenant Tenbrunsel, we want you to fly with us. And if you're not number one on everything you do from now on, you ain't gonna fly with us. And he flew with them. It was really a leap of faith when I made that phone call.
Changed his life.
Changed him, yeah. Yeah.
And but he certainly made the best of it and had an incredibly successful career, like we talked about. Made his way all the way up to full colonel, like we talked about.
Yeah, he did. He was the commander of the McEntire Air Force Base for a while, and then he retired, and he still flies FedEx.
You are officially on the list of people that have successfully run a full marathon, which you did back in Michigan with your dear, dear friend, still dear friend, Ray Hansen.
Ray Hansen.
Tell us about that experience and what it meant, sharing all of that with Ray together from all of the training up until the day of.
The training was the funny thing because, I can tell you so many things we did, and Shirley would drive us out 18 miles and leave us off, and we'd run back home. And while we were out there on 18 miles out in the middle of nowhere in rural Michigan, this Great Dane decided to come chase us, and I'm not sure whether he's going to kill us or just have us for lunch or what. And this car pulled up between us and stayed there while we moved off. I'm not sure what would have happened. Ray's running along, and we're practicing one day on sidewalks, and all of a sudden, Ray just hit the dirt. I looked down, he's face down. he tripped over something, went face down, and that was kind of an interesting thing because I wanted to laugh. I don't know why. It's just and he didn't hurt himself. But I wanted to say, you're a pretty clumsy guy. But here's what really happened. I broke my metatarsals in the tunnel coming from Detroit at the beginning of the race. And it's a steep downhill. You don't realize there's a tunnel coming underneath the lake there from Canada. We started in Canada and come under the tunnel. And it's a steep one, and I was slapping my feet, and I fractured 3 metatarsals on my left foot. And I ran the rest of that 26 miles, whatever it was, with a really hurt. And Ray, and just keep it short to the real key, it was like 50 yards to go, and Ray stayed with me. We were 45 to an hour late from where we wanted to hit the mark.
Because of your injury.
Because of my injury. And I felt bad, but Ray wouldn't leave me. And he got 50 miles, and he grabbed my arm and put it up like this. And we ran across the finish line together. It was one of the finest brotherhood moments of my life.
And the fact that he held back, he could have obviously gone ahead, but he held back because of what you guys went through. It's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah.
In the late 70s, you attempted it, speaking of, accomplishments of sport, you attempted an expedition with a small group of guys to ski across Michigan.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Cross-country ski across Michigan from Lake Michigan at Empire. I walked out on the ice, came back, put on my skis, and started skiing, and all the way to Lake Tawas. There's a riding hiking trail that snowmobiles sometimes use, and in the summer horses use, and hikers use. It's a trail. It's a right-of-way all the way across the state. No, not many people know it. You can Google it. It's really a fun thing, but it never got above 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Never got above 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And we, of course, stashed our food in boxes, nail boxes, so nothing would get in them. Left them away in various places so we could resupply. At one point, we crossed a road there before Jackson Creek, and we were going to bed down for the night. But we went up to this house and ordered 2 steak dinners apiece, and that was a good treat. And so then we ended up Lou Ternowski and I, a good friend of mine, we ended up skiing over to Grayling. Grayling, if you've ever been in Michigan, it's Grayling, Michigan, and there's spikes there. And we ended up getting 5 cheeseburgers apiece, because, you know, we're eating freeze-dried food and it's good, but it's not. And just as many pitchers of beer. And we did that because we went down to the bus station. They wouldn't let us on the bus. We were going to take the bus home, but they said, well, 2 things. They said, you stink. And the other thing was, you would have to pay for a seat for our skis. And I'm going, well, this ain't going to happen. So we went to Spike's, got drunk, and Joe drove the truck and got us, take us home. We actually finished the thing next year. And we had, I'm going to tell the whole story about Tom Jackson, because we had Anthony with us. Anthony Thompson was a young man who just became a friend of mine, and his father was vice president of Michigan State when I was needing a job. And so anyway, Anthony, we say, Anthony, you're in charge of fires. So when Anthony builds a fire, you could hear crack, thud. And he would drag a tree over, a dead tree. And he would cross 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dead trees, and the thing would shoot up probably 25 feet in the air. I mean, it wasn't like your campfire. It was an Anthony Thompson fire. And we sat around on the log pretty back far from it, but we'd spit Yukon Jack into the fire and watch it, you know, boom. It's 100 proof. And you could see it in town. But really something happened there. I'm going to tell the story about Tom Jackson, I think, if that's okay. Tom Jackson, he was a marathon runner. He was a black guy, and he worked at the university, a friend of mine. And
Great guy, love him.
He was just a wonderful person. And I said, Tom, you want to ski with us? Yeah, he's game. I taught him how to ski, and then he skied with us. I mean, that's the kind of talent he was, you know. He just, so we got out there, and we were skiing from Grayling and headed up towards Tawas. And first night, Anthony built fires, and the second day we're heading out again. And about 2 o'clock after lunch, we stopped for, Tom says to me, my toes cold. So I did what any I was a ski instructor. I'm a ski for light, for the blind, certified instructor still. But I took off that extra pair of socks, wool socks, and put it over his ski boots, pulled it up, and they still buckled in. And that helped him to get to the camp that night. We got to camp, cooked, and went to bed, because that's all we did was ate, went to bed. And I guess I was maybe the first to wake up, and it was kind of quiet, but I looked over, and Jackson's sleeping right beside me. He's wide awake. I said, Tom, you're wide awake. He says, yeah, I know, my toe's cold. So I instantly put on my jacket, hopped out of the tent, built a fire, and boiled some water, not boiling, but heated water, put his toe in there, cooked it a little bit. Not really, but that's what you're supposed to do. And it worked, and we ended up, we couldn't finish the trip. We had to turn around and go back. But I got to tell really the end of that story. Jackson went to the same church as we did. And he was, what did I say, he was 5'2" maybe, and a great marathon runner. Man, he could do it. Big beard. And Sedona, his wife, was 6'2". I mean, she was towered over him. And they're sitting in church, and church is over, and I'm walking back, and they're both sitting there together. And I said, Tom, how you doing? And he says, good to see you. I said, okay, and blah, blah, blah. I said, Tom, is your toe still black? And again, the second time in my life, he says, Tenbrunsel, you're the most prejudiced man I ever met. I kept in touch with Tom, and I finally, I don't know what happened to him. He may be dead, but so is Lou, and so is Anthony. They just, I don't know.
So for sure, 2 of the 4 expeditioners are gone.
And we don't
Hopefully
know
not a third. We're still trying to find Tom
Yeah,
Jackson.
Tom.
Great
if
guy.
anybody knows Tom Jackson out there.
Speaking of skiing,
Yeah.
one of your great friends was Tom Smith, former head baseball coach at Michigan State University. Another dear, dear friend.
Yeah, he won 4 Big Ten championships.
Another good skiing story with Tom Smith. Tell that one.
Yeah. Well, we piled in his van, to make a long story short. What was there, 24 of us? I don't know. It was his family 4 and our family of 5. You were with us. Mm-hmm. And we're going to Boyne Mountain to ski up in Michigan. And he's driving in, and snow up there, they plow the roads, but it's like New York. It's like 5 or 6 feet or more on each side. And he's driving in, and I could see it, and he saw it. They had a barrier before you go to the parking lot by the ski lodge. And all the cars were being diverted not only to a field, but a field down there by a field over there. It was packed. So Tom rolls down his window and pulls over, and they have snow markers, red and white markers, sticks, just sticks. He pulls a stick out of the ground, and he holds it, and he gets out his dark sunglasses and puts them on, and he drives towards the gate like this, like Stevie Wonder. He's looking up like this and tapping, like he's blind, for God's sakes. And
using the cane to drive the car.
Yeah, no, to tap, and he's driving the car. But his sunglasses, you can't tell if he's blind or not. But what do you imagine? And we got up to the gate, and the guy looked at us, and he said, "Come on in." He moved the barrier, and we parked up by the lodge.
One of my favorite stories of all
Smith,
time.
He was another Yogi Berra. He knew Yogi Berra. He played minor league ball with him. He was at the Milwaukee Braves when the Braves were in Milwaukee. But yeah, he was just he's still a wonderful guy. He and I talk every week.
You built an old classic car from scratch. Tell us about the key people in the evolution of that.
I'm often out to breakfast with Paul Byler of Paul's Auto Shop in Huntsville. And we talked about everything from politics to just everything. He was just a regular old guy, and I loved him, and I loved autos, and he had rebuilt my Camaro and stuff like that. He says one morning, "Tom, let's build a car." And we decided, and so we decided, yeah, and we picked out which one we would, whether it's in a Mechanica up in Canada, Victoria, or wherever. We decided to do a Factory 5 33 Ford. And it came in 37 boxes, and nothing was missing. And it came with a frame. It's got everything. It's a race car. It's just a 33 Ford race car, and we put a Boss 302. It's 500 horsepower at the crank. I mean, it will scream. And so Sick Nasty is screaming Mustang yellow. You very rarely see it, and it's and Jay, my grandson Jay Sekretarski would love it. He wants it so bad. He just wants it bad, and so it's either that or the Camaro for him. So we built Sick Nasty, but I think there's story after story about this, I bolted on the stuff it was simple. They let me spray paint the car. No, they let me put the first coat of paint on the door and then said, "Get out of here," because this is a professional job. And so, but the whole concept, how did that get named Sick Nasty? That's the thing that I think is great. It's still in my garage, by the way. If you want to see it, come over. And so I had a picture of what it's going to look like. It wasn't exactly screaming Mustang yellow, but there it was. It's on 8x10, and something that we used. And so Erin, Jay just walked in. That's her oldest, but Tommy was 3.5 years old.
Your grandson.
My grandson Tommy. Jay just walked in. He's watching this, and he's a friend of Zeke's, and who's producing this. And so I put a little plug in there, because you never know. And I handed Tommy. He's like 3.5 years old, right? I don't know. Tommy's this way now, but I handed it to him. He took it. I said, Tommy, I said, I'm going to build this car.
At this point, the car is not named yet.
No, it's not named. Just a car, and I knew what we were going to do. And I get it. He took it, 2.5 seconds, looked at it, handed it back to me, and said, "Papa, that's sick nasty." And it was perfect. It was perfect. So I named it SCKNSTY. It's on license plate, especially.
And that's I believe, your Instagram name as well, correct?
Yeah,
is that
it
true?
is. Instagram, if you want to find me, I'm Sick Nasty.
Sick Nasty.
And so, that car, my cousin was a national NHRA. He raced with Big Daddy Don Garlitz and Hal Babe Doll Mooney and Moldovi. Everybody loved Moldovi because she was the sexiest thing on the drag strip. I mean, she had a great Dodge. So I got distracted there. But Eddie named all his cars. His 57 Chevy, he just rode on it with paint. It takes one to catch one. He another one was Hell's a Poppin', and he had Out of Sight that he ran in the '67 Nationals. It was really a competitive car, but and so I dedicated this and wrote, and with a name dedicated it to Eddie Wotier, my cousin. He was a good friend of mine, lifetime. That's another story. That's for another time.
Let's go back in time to Nashville, of course, where you grew up, Nashville, Tennessee. You had a lovely lady who was kind enough to help your parents keep the house as you were growing up in Nashville. Fanny Reeves.
Fanny Reeves.
Talk to us about her and her impact on you.
Fanny Reeves. We'll overlay a picture of Fanny on here. And maybe when she's looking at you, you're just walking. What would that be, 1 year old?
Maybe I was one.
And
picture of me and Fanny.
She's sitting there. Fanny's got this flower dress. She's got these are work boots. I mean, they're those heavy, the ones the nuns wear. Those heavy. And she's got a carpet bag with her that I always told her, Fanny, you're going to probably put some of our silverware on there, aren't you, and take it home. She said, you're bad. And she had on this straw hat. And here comes Fanny. She rode the bus. It was before Rosa Parks. I bet she rode in the back of the bus. But she rode the bus. And she would come on Wednesdays and she would iron and all. But I'm in college. I came home from college. You would come home from college in your freshman year for, I don't know, whatever, Thanksgiving, whatever it was. You want to sleep. You want to sleep. You don't want any, I want to, leave me alone. I don't want to have to go to 8 o'clock class for a while. And so I'm in bed asleep. She's in the back, and then it's about 8:15 because she gets there a little before 8. I didn't hear the first one, but she says, "Lazy bones." And then she went up an octave. Lazy bones, and a little louder. And she went up again. Lazy bones, lazy bones. And by the time she got to 5 octaves, I got the pillow over my head like, ugh. And I can hear her going up in 7 and 8 octaves and louder. And I just threw the pillow and jumped out of bed and said, okay, I'm coming. She fixed me breakfast, just a huge breakfast, and we talked. And Fanny, she taught me about prejudice and racism. We had great conversations about how she had those experiences and what I shouldn't have, you know. And I learned a lot from Fanny, and God bless her. She was older, passed away years ago, but it was a great experience to have Fanny. And she would fix us dinner when we'd have Sunday dinner and invite all the people over, about 10 or 12 people, and she'd eat in the kitchen because she'd already cooked the roast and 15 vegetables. So I'd slide in the kitchen and eat with Fanny. They didn't even miss me.
You've had the privilege of lots of experiences and relationships with Native American Indians along the way, particularly in Michigan. Tell us about some of that.
Yeah, the Native Americans, I have worked with American Indians, I'm sorry. We don't call them Native Americans, they're American Indians. And I've had the privilege of working with the 5 tribal leaders, and through my friend Bill Cross, and I have worked with them on leadership training, where we would take some of their young people that were sharp and place them on boards of major companies. Well, place them in boards as intern-like things. And we were trying to do leadership training, and I was trying for years to teach them not to blow the money they were making on casinos, because they were making, this is like 30 years ago, but they were making $29 billion a year. And I was trying to show them if you place that right, you won't. You'll take care of your sovereignty forever. Right now, I'm working with, and they've asked me to write a book, and it's on the sovereignty and the invisibility of the American Indian as they begin to dilute what an American Indian is because of the intermarriages. So I'm still working on that. That may be one of my books. I'm still working with Bill Cross on that. But I get to a university. I don't know how I got there, but I was at Michigan State University, and I was a new faculty member there. I wasn't new because I'd had several jobs before that. But Bill Cross says, "Hey, Tom," he says, "what are you doing for Thanksgiving?" I said, "Well, I don't know, Shirley and I think you and probably Brian."
I remember it.
I don't think Aaron was alive yet. I don't think he went. But it was, he said, "Well, why don't you come to Thanksgiving dinner with us?" What a unique situation. The Pilgrims invited the American Indians to Thanksgiving dinner. American Indians invited us to Thanksgiving dinner. And it was just a fantastic experience to be able to, well, it was an honor. It was an honor. And I stayed with that program. I'm kind of retired now. I did the best I could with them, and I met some very, very top leaders, and I think they'll be okay.
Peter Mead,
Yeah.
another dear friend, was an important part of your life in the 70s.
Yeah.
Talk about how he influenced your life in unique ways.
Peter Mead, he was a priest. Before I met him, he was a priest. He said his last Mass at St. Anne's in Detroit. And while he was getting vestments and things in the room before they came out, this woman walks in and says, "Father, you left your lights on." He didn't know her from Adam. He took his keys, handed them to him, and said, "Would you take care of it?" Now, you hand somebody your keys in Detroit, you ain't going to see your car. He ends up, it's Connie Mead. She's a wonderful woman, Hispanic, and he married her. I hired Peter Mead when I was building the Family Health Center in Lansing for Model Cities. And it was the best thing I ever did because we became close friends. He was just a genuine, God-loving person. And everybody he touched was blessed, and they were friends. I feel bad about trying to kill him. But it was February in Michigan, and we decided to take a rubber raft that I had for the kids to float when the drain stopped up, they'd float the intersection from our house. But we took this over on the Red City River, and there's snow on the ground. And there's ice at the edges of the river. It's running pretty fast, though, and we're running down there just having a ball. And then we go up on this log, and Peter was a pretty heavy guy. He's sitting in the front, and that thing buckled. And Peter went in the water. And I thought, this is going to be bad. So Rick Forster and I got out, walked across the log, pulled the boat down with us, and ran down there as Peter's going down the stream, you know, and we threw the raft out there. He grabbed on the raft, and we pulled him in, took him home, and I don't know why he didn't die in that freezing experience, but we took him home, and we were friends. He was I call him St. Peter Mead. I wrote a thing that called Cephas, which was a eulogy about him, and it sits in the chapel in a notebook in the St. Anne's in the chapel downstairs.
And tell us about why it was important the day that Erin was baptized, your daughter.
Yeah.
What role he played in that?
Peter Mead baptized my daughter. Where is she? She's in there. She's jawing with her son about something. He's trying to get the car keys. At any rate, she when she was born, being a priest, you're always a priest, but she's retired, you know. And I asked Peter Mead to baptize her. And Jake came over to kind of make it official, but it didn't matter. Peter could have done it, and Peter was just like it was just magnificent. He's a big guy. He's baptizing my daughter in the tub she took a bath in, you know, a little bitty tub like that. And it was just one of those moments that you'll never forget. Baptism of your daughter by a priest who really kind of got the shaft because he wanted to go and minister to the migrants as they would come across. The migrants with their green cards would come across. They've done it for centuries, years, I mean, and they come and they pick our crops. And that's what they did. And Peter was the priest with them. They're all Catholics, the Mexicans, and he's saying mass and just ministering to them. And the church didn't like him doing that. He said, get over here in the parish, and he said, I'm not going to do it. So he retired, but I hired him to help me with the Family Health Center, and Peter died at 55 years old. That was a long time ago because he was 20 years older than I was, I think. And I was lucky to have known Peter Mead. And Connie, I still keep in touch with her. She was sitting on the back porch with Cece. They adopted a Mexican girl that was orphaned. And this strange-looking homeless man's coming up the alley. They lived right on the expressway in Detroit. And I forget the neighborhood, but in one of these 3-story brick buildings, you know, that were from the last century. And she said to Cece, I said, we better go in the house, because Peter had already died. He stopped at the gate. He didn't come in. He said, ma'am, he said, I just wanted to tell you what your husband has done for us. I wanted to come up here and let you know we miss him. He used to grow vegetables on the right-of-way, you know, on the bank of the expressway going into Detroit. He'd grow vegetables, and they come pick them, take them home and eat them. But I thought that was really interesting because she was a little scared, you know, and here this man was maybe, who knows who he was, you know. He might have been he himself.
One day, back at our house, we're going back to Heritage Avenue in Okemos, Michigan. You ended up being a fireman for a day. Tell us how that played out.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm like a dog. I chase anything. And if there's fire trucks that come screaming down the street out there, not your neighborhood, and they stop, you got to go and find out what they're doing. So I went up. It was about I don't know, a quarter mile up the street, up the hill, and then up there's tennis courts, and behind there there's probably 20 acres of nothing but grass. It's probably buildings and apartments now. This was a while back, and would you say you took me back to whatever year it was? So I'm there, and I learned from Chief Dan in New Hope, Alabama, that when fire trucks fight a fire, a field fire, they don't fight it from the outside. They drive the truck through the fire to where it's burnt, because if you park out here, the truck's going to catch on fire. You drive through where it's burnt already, and you fight it from the inside. This guy was sitting there, and there was a big fire truck up here fighting the fires up by the road, and this guy has a smaller, like, tanker truck. I don't know what it was, but it was a big tank on and a hose. And I said, "Can I give you a hand?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "Hop on, grab on, and point the woofer at these at the edge of this fire. I'm going to drive along." And sure enough, I grabbed this thing and turned that woofer on, because it wasn't a real powerful woofer, but it was like this. Driven along, the flame isn't this wide, but you put it out. We put out probably 3/4 of the fire. So I'm considering I'm a fireman. I didn't get an award from the mayor or anything. The city council didn't write me a letter or anything. So.
You've authored 15 books and counting, certainly blossoming over the last 15 years. The acceleration of authorship over the last 15 years accelerated. Tell us about how that's come to be and how important it is in your life these days.
Well, I wrote a lot of books when I was a professor at Michigan State, and I wrote one that was a pretty famous book called Fundraising and Grantsmanship, and that was pretty popular. But I was awarded, the Carl Sandburg Writer for 2023, I mean. And that kind of piqued my writing, because I had a responsibility in a way. They wanted me to publish while I was one of their writers, and I held sessions with people. So I wrote mostly something that you'd be interested in. I wrote. I'm an amateur photographer, but I got some pretty good shots. You know, out of 100, I got like 6 that are winners, and I've got 40,000. So I'm a poet, but of the genre of photo poetry. And I've published 4, soon to be 5, photo poetry books. The latest was Ashes to Appalachia, and it's only sold out of Nest Organics downtown. Katie said, "I'd like to sell you books," and I said, "Okay, I'm going to put them here instead of this bookstore." So I sell them out of there. But at any rate, that's how I think that I just got a boost. I met John Michael Flynn was the resident. They used to have a resident. Now we did it by Zoom because of COVID. But he was the last resident in 2017. And instead of the tour, I went down and knocked on the door of John in the greenhouse out at Connemara, which is Carl Sandburg's home down in Flat Rock. And we struck up a 4-hour conversation. He liked psychology. He picked my brain, and I said, "I like writing, and what can I do?" He said, I said, I've got writer's blocks. He said, no such thing. I said, what? He says, no such thing. Just start writing. Write every day. Just keep writing. There's no such thing as a writer's block. Write about anything you want, but write. Pretty soon you'll find out what you want to write about. And he taught me a lot about what it is to be a writer. I mean, I would say to people, first of all, there's no bad poets. There's no bad poetry. There's some better than others, but it's all kind of like, that's kind of neat. I'm judge for the Carl Sandburg National Children's Poetry Contest. So I'm reading some poetry from grammar school kids. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I thought to myself, poetry's on its way back.
The way you twist the English language in very creative ways.
Yeah.
Is just, I would think that if I didn't know you.
I took the road familiar and traveled ne'er so far. I took the road least traveled and found who am I are.
Perfect example of what I'm talking about.
This is one of your favorite because he said you packed a lot and that was 2 lines, 4 lines.
I think that's the most amount of poetry ever packed in the least amount of words in the history
Possibly.
of poetry.
I put them in ebooks because I want people to read. I'm not going to get rich on publish. I'm not a famous person, but I put it in ebooks, and people like $3.99. You can get an ebook on your phone or your tablet, and people all over the world are buying some ebooks. I make like 50 cents on each ebook on Amazon, but it's like it's reaching the people. I like that.
Gardening.
Yeah.
It's been a big part of your life in Michigan, in Alabama, and now here in North Carolina.
Yeah.
You wrote a book about it.
Yeah. Casual gardening. It's that's what I did. My dad, I think I mentioned this, he was a victory gardener. And, in the war, I was born in 42, and they asked everybody to grow food anywhere, grow it on your roof, your front door, your front yard, and everywhere. And he had a victory garden. He got an award for it. But I thought to myself, I've had a garden ever since. I still got a victory garden at my house. I consider it a victory garden. Because I used to farm with, that's what I did with my dad a lot. He just grew stuff, and I learned about what he did. And so that is that's a key thing. But I've got a philosophy about it. And people just worry to death about gardening. And I said, here's what you do. You take a seed and you plant it. If you plant it, it will grow. Grab some sweet tea and an Adirondack in the shade and watch it. That's what my book's about. My book has stories in it, by the way. About the time I took a nap, and I've got an owl, one of those owls that looks like an owl. And
Oh yeah, I have one in my
and
house.
blows his head around and all that sort of thing. And I wrote a poem about it. It's not necessarily true, but it makes a good story. And I said I was sitting there watching my garden grow, and I was sitting in my Adirondack chair, and I looked up, and the owl was not looking at me; it was looking right past me. So I quick sprung, pulled my pistol out, and I thought, well, something's after me. Didn't really happen, but it makes sense. You're just a casual gardener. You should enjoy it. And they say, well, what do I do? I live in an apartment. Just grow it in a pot. Grow it in your house. Make a greenhouse out of your windowsill. So it's kind of fun.
Your children, and our children, which you call your grandchildren.
Yeah.
Another pun on words. Yeah. Excellent pun on words.
Yeah.
Are obviously paramount in your life.
Yeah.
Use this time to talk about how they have impacted your life and vice versa.
Well, my children I was one of them. I was her father, but I was one of the kids. When y'all played baseball or skied or rode your bike, I was having fun. So my philosophy is I say to parents, as a clinical psychologist, you got to be present to win in parenting. And I believe it, but I put it into practice. And you can come in, because this is one of them here I'm going to talk about. And but yes, you know, I flew gliders with Brian. He had a little wooden glider at first at Christmas, and then we got big gliders that I made the plane, and I got them up, and I got confused, so I'd hand the controls to Brian, and he ended up in an F-16 with the controls. So with you, I did a lot of coaching. I was quite a football coach. My record is 14-3-3, 44.
44. 3-4, I think.
Yeah, I was a great coach in Oaks, you know, flag ball. But I enjoyed coaching you, and then Brian too, and Aaron. You didn't play football, but you played some softball. Mm-hmm. So I think I was one of the kids, but I was also a father image. I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to do much. And thank God we had a mother that would do things like meals and things, and she did a really good job. When I had to do it while she was doing nursing, I just gave you the old canned stuff. You know, we had, what was it?
Green beans and tomato paste.
Yeah, and foo-foo for dessert, fruit in a can, whatever. So yeah, so that's the story of my children was the joy of that is watching them become independent. And as your parent, you forget that. You try to tell them what to do after they're 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, whatever. And you don't realize that you've taught them 80% of what you're going to be able to teach them by 7 years old. And as a clinical psychologist, I've tried to make that clear to people. But your daughter may call you. She's graduated and she's over in Detroit, and she says, "Dad, what do you think? Should I start a bank account? I mean, I've been thinking about it. It might be a good thing. I'm getting a paycheck now." And I go, "Put on the brakes, baby. Put on the brakes. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it." And we talked a little bit, and pretty soon she said, "Well, I opened an account at SunTrust today." And I'm going, whew. I didn't tell her what to do. She already knew. And will you set me up? But I mean, the concept is you got to let them go, and you got to understand that your job goes from being the director, whether 5, 6, 7 years old, to the producer. We just kind of pay for the what is it, travel ball. You're going through that now. You're going. You are got 2 in college, and so that has been a good experience for me. Is kind of like I live vicariously through my children, because they're all done better than me at most anything that I do, and that's kind of nice. And I know they're better parents than I was. And I'm going, well, that was pretty good, because I probably helped that happen. So that's kind of what I think. Grandchildren, I could go through all of them, but the reason I guess I'm in North Carolina is because Erin was here with her 3 kids, and they were at the age of where they come up and hug you. It wasn't just texting them wherever they are, just come up and hug you. And the big one out here that's going to go to the University of Pennsylvania and play baseball, he'll hug you. He'll hug me when we finish today. And it just is a joy. And his brother Tommy is like me. you told me, Aaron, what I am. I'm global. I think I'm global. But Tommy is global. He's global. He's my namesake, Thomas William. I'm not going to go through that other. And Annie, she's, well, there's a Aaron's a D1 athlete, played volleyball, like I said, in Alabama 4 years, the setter. And Jimmy, her husband, Jimmy, is a D1 player for Siena. Yeah, Siena.
Exceptional.
Yeah,
D1 player for Siena.
His 3-point record wasn't broken until about 5 years ago.
All-time leading scorer for Arrowhead High School, that one.
Is that it?
Got a kid that's starting at Wisconsin right now.
Yeah. So, they were good. And so in yours was two things. One is business and music. And you've done quite well as music is a hobby, but not really a hobby. It's really good. You're getting ready to actually join an a cappella group. I think that's fantastic because I do a lot of a cappella in the bathroom myself. But I think that's going to be another thing that we all enjoy. I enjoy my kids. I don't know what else to say. I just enjoy them. Grandkids? I've been through 3 of them. And then there's 2 of them. You're 2. 2 girls, gorgeous. She was a state championship gymnast, and she just organized one of the best possible routines involving 200 people in her sorority out at Baylor. And then you've got the other one is that's Lauren, and the other one is Caitlin, and she is out in the University of Southern California, and she was selected as one of 14 people to be in the theater program, theater, acting, singing, but she's chosen to be a producer too. I'm going, my goodness. And so that's all such a joy to be a grandfather. And then Brian's kids, Will is talented, gorgeous guy. If he wanted to, he could be in movies. He reminds me of that guy, I forget the actor.
Tom Cruise.
Well, Tom Cruise, but the other one that was in This Is Us. But he looks like him. And so, any rate, then there's Jack. He's gone with aviation, and he's a captain for Delta. And flies for Delta. He followed his father in the concept. Brian's still with FedEx, after he got out of the F-16. And Nick. I still want to call him Nicky, but he's Nick. And they begin to sort of find girlfriends, and boyfriends. And so we're looking at maybe new things happening. But they're all such a joy, and they all are successful and personable, and they all run up and hug me.
For anyone who may be watching this discussion tomorrow, a year from now, 50 years from now, what's your advice on how to lead and live a full life?
Well, good question. I think it boils down to, love the Lord God is, and to treat your neighbor as yourself. The sort of the main commandment. Then network and follow your dreams, and as a parent, be present. I can't tell them what to do, because you just do what you want to do and you pursue it. And but I will say that networking works, because as a person with ADHD, I change jobs every 5 years. Nobody knows it, but I do. And I'm 6 years going into this. I don't know what I'm going to do. But, you know, I think it's hard to say, just make life, enjoy life. Enjoy people, friends, family for sure. And I'm going to read you this. I'm going to listen to this and say, I should have had a better answer prepared, but that sounds like a good start. Did I miss something?
I think you got it. Any final reflections on life, friends, family, God, anything that's on your heart that you want to share that you haven't already?
Oh, well, you know, it started with God. Don't forget that. You know, your purpose and reason for being here, and you try to lead a responsible life in the manner of which that you treat people well. Do I need to add anything, Jay?
Nailed it.
Thank you.
Well, if I could, I know you've done all the heavy lifting. If I could grab the microphone for just a second.
Okay. And I got one other thing to say, but go ahead. Just a short phrase.
Please do it.
Well, it's going to be after you, but I'll say it now. It ain't over till it's over.
You should have saved that. That would have been a good ending. Maybe we could put
That's
that
okay.
in.
We'll splice it at the end.
But you've done all the heavy lifting so far. If I could,
Yeah.
On behalf of your children, your grandchildren, I just want to say a few things about what you've meant to us. And I guess the best way that I think of it is there's so many gifts that you've given us over the years. Over 50 years. If I could, and forgive me for the notes here, but I didn't want to miss anything. I want to go through what those gifts are. The first is the gift of time. I guess I just thought it was normal for dads to be around in the evenings when I was a kid. And as I've gotten older, I realized that's not necessarily the case. And you were around, and you said it yourself 15 minutes ago, that you have to be present to win, is what you said.
Yeah.
You were present, and it made a big impact on our lives. So the gift of time was the first gift. The second was the gift
With Shirley. I mean, she was present too, thank goodness.
Well, and it goes without saying that all of these gifts apply to her too. We're here talking about you today.
Yeah.
The gift of affection and love is what I call the next one, is that you were never bashful or to show affection to us and make us feel that we were loved. And we knew we were loved. It wasn't even a question. And that was another gift. The gift of confidence. You made us feel that we were the best at everything we did, and even where most of the time we weren't. But you made us feel like we were the best. And so I think our confidence is what it is today for that reason. The gift of friendship and camaraderie. You always surrounded yourself with people that were dear friends to you. And they were always around, and they were a big part of your life. And so the lesson I learned from that is it's important to surround yourself with people like that.
Yeah.
And to invest in them. The gift of music. Right? I've jokingly said that, and it's a joke, but it's true. The musical abilities of this family have gone up with every generation. You were more talented musician than your parents were. I'm probably more talented musician than you are.
Yeah.
And Caitlin and Tommy are significantly more talented musicians than all of us.
Yeah.
And it's just going up the ladder. And so the gift of music has been so important, from the Hollers Farms to the playing piano around the house. And so that's another gift. The gift of humor, right? You were always, you were kind of the life of the party. And you made people laugh, and I observed that. I'm not the life, that's not me. But that's part of who you were, and you brought a lot of life and levity to places. The gift of faith, right? You told us how important God was. You didn't just tell us, you showed us. We were at church every Sunday, even though most of the time we didn't want to be. Of course, that's changed now. We've learned more, and we
Yeah.
understand how important it is. But back then, it was more of a burden. But we were there, and I have so many fond memories of St. John's from East Lansing, thanks to you and Mom taking us there. The gift of honoring marriage, right? Marriage is very difficult. We've all learned that, right? And you've showed us how important it is to work through it and stick it out. And it's the pillar of family, and so you showed us that. The gift of honoring your home, right? It's important to care for, respect, and keep your home, treat it almost like a temple. And I'm the worst one at that in the family. Brian is good at that. Aaron's good at that. I'm not. But you showed how important it is to do that. And then lastly, but not leastly, the gift of stability. We always felt like we had a stable foundation in our family, of which to kind of step off of and leap into life. And without that foundation, we wouldn't have been able to do that. We were able to be kids. We didn't have to grow up too soon. We didn't have to worry about being anything but kids, because you provided the stability that enabled us to do that. So I'm sure that I'm just saying that on behalf of everybody else.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this discussion, on behalf of the family, Papa, Dad, thank you for these gifts, and thank you for this time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You said it better than I did. I mean, you wrapped it up. You said the things I probably should have said at the end, like you caught me looking, but I enjoyed. Thank you for that. That was very well put, and I enjoyed this. This is sort of kind of like, memories are a part of your life. Memories become realities forever, and that's kind of a nice thing, and that's what I've enjoyed. This is a success story. We've had a few bumps here and there, but we've handled them, and it's been fun. It's still going to be fun. We're off to the next wherever.